All right, let's dive into one of the greatest, most enduring aviation mysteries in history, the unsolved case of Amelia Earhart.
Picture this. It's the summer of 1937, and Amelia Earhart is, without a doubt, one of the most famous women on the planet, a true superstar. She's in the middle of her most ambitious feat yet, a record-setting flight around the entire world. But then, somewhere over the vast, empty Pacific Ocean, she and her navigator, Fred Noonan, just disappeared. And you really get a sense of her spirit from her own words. She said, "My ambition is to make this flight a success. It is for the adventure of it all." You see, for her, this wasn't just about setting a record. It was about pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The adventure was the point. For over 80 years now, people have been asking that same question. And the theories, well, they range from the totally plausible to the completely out there. So today, we're going to be detectives. We're going to look at the hard facts, weigh the evidence, and really dig into the three main theories about her fate.
But before we get into any of that speculation, we have to start with what we actually know for sure. So let's reconstruct those last known hours of our final, fateful flight.
Okay, so they had already flown almost all the way around the world when they landed in Lae, New Guinea. On July 2nd, they took off for what was by far the most difficult leg of the journey, a tiny little island called Howland. About 14 hours in, things start to go wrong. Earhart radios that the weather is cloudy, which is a huge problem for navigation. Then, nearly 20 hours into the flight, they get one last haunting message. After that, radio silence. A massive search effort was launched, but by July 19th, it was over. They'd found nothing.
And to really understand just how insane this challenge was, look at this number. 2.5 kilometers. That's it. That's the entire length of the island they were trying to find. A flat little speck in the middle of the Pacific Ocean after flying for almost a full day. The margin for error was basically zero.
And it wasn't just one thing that went wrong. It was like a perfect storm of disaster. They were flying with a razor-thin fuel reserve. The clouds meant they couldn't see the stars to navigate. Their radio had known issues, and they were on a different frequency than the guide ship. And, you're not going to believe this, the direction finder on the island that was supposed to guide them in, yeah, its batteries were dead.
But here's the part that really gives you chills. The Coast Guard ship, the Itasca, said her radio signals were coming in loud and strong. That means she had to be close, really close. She was right there, circling, but she just couldn't see them. She was completely lost.
Okay, with all those facts laid out, let's get into our first theory. This is the official one, the one the US government stands by, and what most people have believed for decades.
It's known as the crash and sink theory, and it's brutally simple. The plane ran out of gas, it hit the water, and it sank. And we're talking about an area where the ocean is incredibly deep. The wreckage would have vanished almost instantly, leaving absolutely nothing for search parties to find.
And the evidence for this is pretty straightforward. I mean, Earhart herself said she was running low on fuel. The biggest search in naval history at the time found nothing. And even modern, high-tech sonar searches have come up empty. For a lot of people, it's just the simplest, and sadly, the most logical explanation.
But what if the story didn't end with a crash? Theory number 2 paints a totally different picture. Not of a tragic accident, but of a desperate fight for survival. And it's backed by a really fascinating trail of clues.
This is the Nukamoro hypothesis. The idea is that when Earhart knew she'd missed Howland Island, she turned south and flew along a specific navigation line. And there, she found another small, uninhabited island, then called Gardner Island. Proponents of this theory believe she managed to land the plane on a flat coral reef and survived, for a time, as a castaway. Now, this isn't just a wild guess. The clues started popping up just a few years later. For days after she vanished, radio operators picked up faint distress calls. Then, in 1940, a British official on that very island found something incredible. Partial human bones, the sole of a woman's shoe, and a sextant box, just like the one her navigator used. Now, the bones were later lost, but a modern analysis of the official's notes concluded they likely belonged to a European woman, about Amelia's height.
And it gets better. Modern expeditions to the island have uncovered even more. They've found what looks like a castaway's campsite, with bones from cooked turtles and fish. They found a piece of aluminum that seems to be an exact match for a custom patch on Earhart's plane. But the most personal clue? A jar of freckle cream. And it was no secret that Amelia Earhart really disliked her freckles.
However, and this is a big however, this theory is far from a slam dunk. Just a week after she disappeared, Navy planes flew right over that island and reported seeing no signs of life. And since those original bones were lost, we can't do a DNA test. It's a collection of really compelling clues, for sure, but there's no smoking gun.
Okay, so now we're gonna venture into the deep end. This is our third category, the conspiracy files. These are the wild stories of spies and secret missions that have kept this mystery alive for so long.
The most popular one you always hear is the Japanese capture theory. The idea goes that Earhart and Noonan flew way off course, ended up in the Marshall Islands, which were controlled by Japan at the time, and were picked up as American spies and either imprisoned or executed.
And for a hot minute in 2017, it looked like this theory was about to be proven. A documentary released what they claimed was a photo of Earhart and Noonan on a dock in the Marshall Islands. It was everywhere. But then, almost as quickly as it appeared, the whole thing fell apart. A military history blogger found the exact same photo in a Japanese travel guide published in 1935. That's a full 2 years before her final flight.
And then you get into the really fringe stuff, that she was on a secret spy mission for FDR, or that she actually survived, came back to America, and lived out her life as a banker in New Jersey named Irene Bolam. Look, the bottom line here is that historians have looked, and there is zero, and I mean zero, credible evidence in any archive, American or Japanese, to back any of this up.
So, where does that leave us? After all the decades of searching, all the speculation, all the investigations, what are we really left with? Let's weigh it all one last time.
So here's the final scorecard. You've got crash and sink. It's the simplest explanation, it's officially accepted, but it lacks that final proof, the plane itself. Then you have the Nikomaro castaway theory. It's got a ton of compelling clues, but it's still unproven. And finally, the Japanese capture theory. With the photo debunked, it's pretty much been discredited.
And that right there is the enduring power of this mystery. Was she a hero tragically lost to the sea, a resourceful survivor fighting to our last breath on a deserted island, or something else entirely? The evidence points in different directions, and until that one definitive piece of wreckage is found, the final chapter of Amelia Earhart's story, well, that's one you get to decide for yourself.